Does Justice League begin the great retcon of the DCEU? Justice League is less than 2 weeks away. Oh my god. But somehow we're still learning new things about the tentpole picture of the DC cinematic universe. The state of the film, as well as the entire DCEU, has seemingly been in flux since day one of production. But rumors really kicked into overdrive over the summer with news of Joss Whedon stepping into Zack Snyder's director's chair and reports that Ben Affleck was already getting sick of his tenure as Batman. And now, even this close to its release date, we're getting signs that things might still be very up in the air. And no, we're not just talking about Superman, because he flies in... In a recent Justice League press junket in London, Gal Gadot was asked about Wonder Woman 2, and while she wasn't able to share much, she did offer this intriguing quote about Diana's role in the world of men. Wonder Woman was out there or incognito. She was always very involved and always very active in a man's world, and she was always acting to save and to help and to better the world. Now that sounds like it should be a pretty standard status quo for any superhero, being out there in the world trying to save it on a regular basis, except it wasn't the status quo for Wonder Woman when we first met her back in Batman v Superman. When she finally showed up for the climactic Doomsday battle, Superman seemed to have absolutely no idea who she was, and Batman was only slightly aware of who she was after some extensive background research on his computer. Remember that scene where he's just like looking through his photos? Exciting. The Daily Planet's second best reporter and the world's greatest detective are scratching their heads when you arrive on the scene. It seems like you probably haven't made much of an impact as a superhero. But now Gadot is claiming the complete opposite, that in fact, Wonder Woman was out there saving the day in a very public fashion, and sure, she threw the word incognito in there, but it's hard to imagine how incognito she could remain as Amazon warrior with the ability to lift tanks over her head, right? That's the kind of thing that gets attention. What this says to us is, once again, DC is course correcting, throwing out an idea or concept that didn't work in favor of one that's more in line with what fans and critics want. Yay! But this isn't the only sign of the DCEU being retconned. We're also hearing unofficial rumblings from insiders that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's Black Adam will be introduced via Suicide Squad 2.
Rocky! Rocky!
The Rock has been coy about this, but he's basically been dropping hints since May about a really cool surprise in store for Black Adam's first appearance in the DCEU.
We have a really cool surprise for Black Adam.
This contradicts what we had previously heard about Black Adam and his wizard nemesis Shazam, that the two characters' films would be standalones and would not be part of the main DCEU. And while solo flicks for both Shazam and Black Adam are still coming down the pipeline, by putting Black Adam smack dab in the middle of the Suicide Squad, there's no way DC can maintain the position that the two classic characters are outside the main DCEU. Since The Rock's career has been sick lately, we can kind of see where they decided to make him a focal point of the follow-up to Suicide Squad, with the band of villains tasked with recovering a weapon of mass destruction, Black Adam himself. Hopefully The Rock can inject some much-needed levity into the second outing for the Superbad team. And there's yet another key chess piece recently moved into position for a potential checkmate of the DCEU retconning. One Brian Michael Bendis, a Marvel writer, former member of the Marvel Creative Committee, and a story architect for the MCU. Bendis is yet another Marvel alum who jumped ship to help sort out the inner workings of the DCEU. Bendis follows in the footsteps of Joss Whedon, another former Marvel Creative Committee member who had been dipping his toe in the DCEU pool since the committee dissolved in 2015. So what does this all mean for the future of the DCEU? Well, as far as the very immediate future goes, we're definitely bracing ourselves for a disjointed Justice League, one that shifts between tones and ideas from scene to scene, and not that we're complaining exactly. The word from early screenings is that it's much lighter than a lot of the previous films, even if there are still shades of that Zack Snyder grittiness. And we're excited for that. And in general, this makes us more excited for the future of the franchise in general. It's cool to see a company respond to fans and critics like this and be willing to make the required changes to build a better cinematic universe. We already know DC can hit it out of the park. They did it with Wonder Woman this summer. We just want to see their batting average go up a little bit. And hopefully with this commitment to change, it will. But folks, what do you think? Are you excited to see the DCEU evolve, or did you like it just the way it was? And are there any other big changes you think need to happen? Let's discuss. Be sure to like and subscribe. I'm sure you've noticed by now, I'm not Jessica Chobot, I'm Steve Zaragoza. Jessica Chobot found her 4th Horcrux and has now begun her search for the 5th. In the meantime, I'm also going to be on Nerdist News Talks Back today. It's Nerdist's live daily show where we break down all the hottest stories in pop culture, from TV and movies to video games, comics, and more. Catch it Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over on youtube.com/Nerdist or projectalpha.com.